Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we will be discussing the case of the Lululemon murder. This is the story of what happened to Jayna Murray while she was working at a Lululemon store in Bethesda, Maryland. Jayna Murray was an ambitious, driven woman from Bethesda, Maryland. She was 30 years old at the time of her death and was about to receive not one but two master's degrees from Johns Hopkins University, one in communication and one in business administration. Jayna had a sense of adventure and even spent time studying in Spain as part of her undergraduate degree in science. Her family describes her as a lover of animals, dance, and travel. Jayna had traveled to every continent but one, and it was a goal of hers to visit all 7 continents before she died. Jayna liked to live her life on the edge and was never one to turn down an adventure. Jayna loved to volunteer and gave a lot of her time to different organizations. All around, Jayna was a very good person with a huge heart. She cared about other people and the world around her. She had a positive attitude, and this is what drew her to Lululemon. She liked that the company really motivated women to be their best selves and to practice kindness towards others and the environment. While working at Lululemon, Jayna was known as the strong one. She could handle just about anything and always had a positive, uplifting attitude. Brittany Norwood was 28 at the time of the incident. Although Brittany had a small frame, she was very strong, likely due to her history of athletics and her love of exercise. Brittany loved to take different fitness classes and was hoping to get a job as a personal trainer at a gym nearby. Brittany was one of 9 siblings and came from a family that enforced goals and strived for achievements. Brittany was known as a happy person who prioritized being happy. She had an affinity for the finer things in life. She liked expensive food, nice clothes, and cared about her appearance. Brittany's friends often wondered how she was able to afford her lifestyle on her Lululemon salary. Brittany had only been at the Bethesda Lululemon for about a month at the time of the murder, and she knew that working there would not provide her with the luxurious lifestyle she desired. In her younger years, Brittany was described as being a great student with a talent for writing. She was described as being funny and bright and very charismatic. Others who knew her said that Brittany was great with children and had a lot of empathy for other people. However, once Brittany graduated and went on to college, her personality began to change. Her family says that Brittany was led astray once she left home. At college, Brittany was becoming known as a thief by her soccer teammates. Multiple students believed Brittany stole money, clothing, and other items from them. Despite being a great player, Brittany was eventually kicked off the soccer team for stealing, and she did not end up receiving her diploma from her college, though she lied and told people that she did. Brittany moved to Washington, D.C., where her bad behavior only continued. She was sued for not paying rent and speeding tickets. And she had even gotten her hair done at a salon that she never paid for because when it came time to pay, Brittany lied and said that she forgot her wallet. Brittany had a relationship with a dentist, and after they broke up, there were reports that she had been stalking and harassing him. There was one particular incident where Brittany entered her ex-boyfriend's home because she still had keys and she knew the code for the alarm. The dentist's new girlfriend said that many of her personal belongings had been stolen, and this incident led to Brittany being served a restraining order. Within 2 weeks, Brittany had violated the restraining order. However, Lululemon did not know any of this prior to hiring her. The store manager, Rachel, lived across the street from the store. On the morning of March 12th, she left her apartment and headed across the street to open the store up for the day. As Rachel approached the entrance of the store, something seemed off. Rachel was a stern leader. She liked things to be done a particular way and ran the store in a very calculated manner. She instilled a sense of cleanliness into her employees, and so when she arrived at her store and saw that it was in complete disarray, she knew something was not right. The front door was unlocked when Rachel got to the store, and Rachel assumed that Jayna had carelessly forgotten to lock the door after she closed up the night before. However, the further Rachel got into the store, the worse things got. At first, she noticed that furniture was out of place. Mannequins had been tipped over, and a TV had crashed onto the floor. Merchandise was thrown about, and finally she saw something truly alarming: bloody footprints on the floor. Rachel ran over to the Apple store where there was a group of people lined up preparing to purchase the new iPad 2. As Rachel ran out of her store, she was visibly upset. A man who was sitting on a bench waiting for the Apple store to open asked her if she was okay. His name was Ryan Haw. Rachel told him what she walked into that morning, and Ryan offered to go in and take a look. Ryan walked in and noticed there were bloody sneaker prints all over the floor. He continued into the store until he got into the back room, where he walked in and saw Jayna's body. He checked to see if she was alive and then went to leave the store. As he was attempting to leave, he noticed another body in a bathroom. This body belonged to Brittany Norwood. Brittany's body had many cuts on it, and her hands were tied up over her head. Brittany's feet were also bound with zip ties. Ryan could tell that Brittany was still alive because she was breathing. Ryan went outside to tell Rachel what he found, and together they called the police, who arrived in minutes. When a police officer arrived at the scene, she went inside the store where she found Brittany Norwood. She went into the back room where she found Jayna's body and realized that a toolbox had been spilled out over her. Jayna's pants had been cut in between her legs, exposing her butt. Upon being questioned, Brittany told detectives that on the night before, after finishing their closing shift at Lululemon, Brittany and Jayna went their separate ways. Brittany headed for the metro and Jayna got in her vehicle and left. However, Brittany soon realized that she forgot her wallet inside the store and it contained her metro card. She called Jayna, since Jayna was a key holder to the store, and asked if she could meet her at Lululemon so that Brittany could go in and get her wallet. Brittany stated that Jayna arrived and the two of them spent 10 minutes looking for Brittany's wallet, but they couldn't find it. Eventually, Jayna offered Brittany her own metro card so that Brittany could get home. That is when Brittany said two men came into the store and started attacking them. She said the men were dressed all in black and had their faces masked. Brittany told police that one man hit her in the head and was dragging her around the store by her hair, while the other man attacked Jayna. Brittany went on to say that the men cut her all over her body and told her that if she said another word, he would slit her throat. Brittany then said the men called her derogatory names and insulted her. Brittany told detectives that one of the men brought her into the bathroom and pushed her down. She said that she tried to fight him, and that is when the man hit her in the head and threatened her, telling her he would make sure she would never be able to have kids if she kept fighting back. The man sexually assaulted her and then, according to Brittany, assaulted her with a clothes hanger he found in the store. Brittany told the police that she could hear Jayna screaming in the next room. Next, Brittany claims that her attacker demanded that Brittany show him how to open the cash register so he could rob the store. Brittany said that she could hear Jayna being attacked and that Jayna continuously screamed for help until her screams eventually stopped. Brittany told detectives that she was able to briefly get away, and that is when she ran towards the rear exit of the store, but her plan to escape was interrupted by one of the attackers pulling her backwards by her hair. Brittany recalls seeing more blood than she had ever seen before, and said that she tried to help Jayna, stating that Jayna was so innocent. Brittany told the police that she blamed herself because she was the reason that she and Jayna had to return to the store. When describing the attackers, Brittany said that one man was really tall, while the other was really short. She said that she could not identify their race because they were wearing gloves and ski masks. However, if she had to guess based on their voices, Brittany would guess that the attackers were white. She said that after the men tied her up, she blacked out and did not regain consciousness until the following morning when she was being rescued by the police. At the crime scene, detectives found two types of bloody footprints. One looked to belong to a woman, while the other set belonged to a man. Detectives found box cutters that they assumed were used to cut Brittany and Jayna. In the bathroom where Brittany was found, a broken vase lay on the floor. Clumps of blonde hair were found all over the crime scene. Blood splatter covered the walls. There was a red handprint on the wall where the TV had fallen, as well as another one on the handle of the emergency door in the back room. A broken cell phone was also next to the door. The rope tied around Jayna's neck seemed to match a coil of rope that was on a shelf just above where her body was found. Jayna's autopsy revealed that she had more than 300 wounds. 232 of those wounds were blunt force injuries, while 99 of them were sharp force injuries. Jayna suffered more than 100 wounds to her head, 39 of them being on her face alone. The top of her skull was broken in 8 places, and she had bruises on her neck and chin from where the rope was tied. 27 wounds were found on the back of Jayna's head, and on the right side of her lower skull, there was a 3.5-inch stab wound. That deep gash was the wound that killed her. A conservative estimate states that 331 wounds were counted on Jayna. However, some of the wounds overlapped and were not counted as separate injuries. Based on her autopsy, it shows that Jayna fought for her life. 105 of her wounds were classified as defensive wounds. They were located on her arms and hands, which shows that she made every effort possible to fight off her attacker. Her wounds showed that Jayna must have been alive throughout the first 330 cuts, resulting in the 331st stab wound being the wound that killed her. Based on the amount of injuries, the coroner believed that this attack must have taken a while. Due to the variation in injuries, it was concluded that Jayna had been attacked with as little as 5 and at most 10 different weapons, which included a hammer, a wrench, 2 types of box cutters, a metal peg, a steel rod, a razor, and some rope. The fatal stab was thought to come from a knife that was kept inside the store. The police gathered security footage from a camera that belonged to the Apple store and was pointed right at the entrance to Lululemon. The footage showed 2 men coming from the direction of the Lululemon store, and they were dressed entirely in black and had knit caps on. They also seemed to be moving in a hurry, and the timing matched up, showing that the men were leaving roughly an hour after Jayna and Brittany re-entered Lululemon. This also led police to a suspect that went by the name of Kevin. He was a man that had been known to hang around the area and had been spotted right near the Lululemon store the night before walking with 2 guys. The men were all carrying backpacks and seemed suspicious. Kevin usually stopped in at a local bar, but did not on the nights of the murder or the day after. It turned out that Kevin was being treated at a hospital in Tacoma Park for bloody wounds, the same hospital Brittany Norwood was at. The police showed up, and when they questioned Kevin about his wounds, he said he was attacked at a nightclub that Friday night. Kevin stated that he had seen 2 men attack 2 women in the Lululemon store the night before, backing up Brittany's story. Though Kevin had a record, the police did not think he was a suspect for this murder. During a police conference, it was stated that it was believed 2 men entered the unlocked door of the store and attacked Brittany and Jayna. In what was considered to be a safe town, this information was jarring for the community. It had everybody on edge. Employees of nearby stores felt fearful knowing that 2 women were attacked in their shopping district. But did they have a right to be worried? At the time the murder was taking place, 2 Apple employees later came forward and said that they had actually heard the attack as it was happening. They could hear screaming and thuds on the other side of the wall. The manager stated that she heard grunting and yelping, as well as something heavy sounding like it was being dragged around. The manager sought out another employee and asked him to take a listen. The other employee stated that he heard groaning and panting. The Apple employees said they could hear 2 female voices in what sounded like an argument. One voice repeatedly said, "Talk to me. Why won't you tell me what's going on? Please, just talk to me." The second voice said, "Stop. Oh God, please help me. God, help me." The conversation seemed to come to an end, but they still heard grunting and yelps. It turns out that what the Apple employees heard at the end of the conversation was agonal breathing coming from Jayna. These are the final breaths someone takes when they are on the brink of death. Despite the obvious altercation they heard coming from next door, the 2 Apple employees shrugged it off, assuming it was just some drama. They said they heard this take place from 10:10 p.m. to 10:19 p.m. Although I don't want to entirely blame these employees, they had nearly 10 minutes where they could have chosen to investigate what they were hearing rather than just assuming it was nothing. There were also 2 security guards on duty at the Apple store that they could have sent over had they not wanted to do it themselves. But rather than investigating these unusual and concerning noises, they chose to ignore them. Detectives went to Brittany's sister's townhome where she was staying to get her take on the attack once again. Brittany's parents and a few of her brothers had come to be with her in her time of need. The detectives asked Brittany to retell her account of the attack, and Brittany said that her attacker was wearing a hoodie over his ski mask and that he smelled of cigarettes. She stated with certainty that the men were white, and stated that the attackers were laughing during the attack. She said that to the men, it seemed like they were playing a game. Brittany told detectives that when she had tried to escape, the men shoved her body down onto Jayna's, pushing her into the blood. The men told Brittany that the attack was all because of her. Brittany stated that the men told her the only reason she was not in the same position as Jayna was because Brittany was more fun to fuck. At this time, another detective found a pair of large male sneakers at the Lululemon store. The sneakers matched the bloody footprints at the crime scene. The sneakers had blood on the tops of them, but the soles had been wiped clean and the laces had been removed. When the detectives asked Brittany about the sneakers, she said that the sneakers were kept inside the store in case men wanted to wear them while getting alterations. The police found it very odd that the shoes were the property of the store. Brittany told the police that the attackers knew personal information about her because they had rummaged through her personal belongings. The detectives could not get over the fact that the sneakers were not left behind by the attackers, but instead were the property of Lululemon. This is where the case took a turn. After the detectives left Brittany, they kept thinking about how some things just didn't seem right about her story. Why would the robbers have gone into the store without any weapons of their own? They clearly had the intent to rob the store since they came in with masks, but why wouldn't they think to bring their own weapons? Another thing that stood out was the major difference in Jayna's attack versus Brittany's. Jayna suffered massive, fatal injuries, while Brittany's wounds were mostly superficial. Why would the attackers brutally kill Jayna, and yet the attack on Brittany seemed to be more mental than physical? And what really stood out to the detectives was the fact that the attackers supposedly switched into sneakers at Lululemon rather than wearing their own. The detectives started to think that rather being another victim of this crime, Brittany was actually the one to commit the crime. They found it odd that the bloody footprints never left the store, but if you consider the fact that Brittany was the one to wear the shoes, it would make sense because she never left the store either. Even the zip ties that were used to tie Brittany up came from inside Lululemon. Another curious thing was the fact that the Apple employees only heard 2 female voices. If 2 men had been in there, wouldn't they have heard male voices as well? The suspicion started to shift to Brittany. They found it odd how Brittany's wrists were tied over her head. She was not bound to one spot. She could have crawled out of the bathroom, she could have gotten her phone, and she could have called for help. They noticed how Brittany's cuts were shallow and mostly in straight lines, not jagged like they would be if someone else had inflicted them. Brittany had cuts on her back, and the cops wondered how they would have gotten there if she had done it to herself. They tested their theory and found that if she had wanted to, Brittany would have easily been able to cut her back. The cuts in Brittany's pants also did not match up with the cuts on her thighs. The same thing was true for her torso. The cuts in her top were not consistent with the cuts on her breasts. Also, when a nurse performed an exam on Brittany, she found that there was no sign of damage to her genitals. That didn't necessarily mean an assault didn't occur, but it was not consistent with the clothes hanger Brittany said was used on her. One of the sets of bloody footprints matched Brittany's size 7 foot. And as far as the men's footprints, wherever they were found overlapping the woman's footprints. The men's shoe prints happened after the woman's footprints had already been placed. It was very odd because if there had been a struggle, it would have shown in the footprints, but the way the footprints were set up looked almost calculated. Another odd thing is that there was evidence that the shoes had been taken to the sink and cleaned off, and there was no sign that they ever left the room where the sink was. There were shoelace marks left on the floor, and the laces matched Brittany's New Balance shoes. Due to the blood splatter on the walls, it was shown that Jayna was beaten from a standing position and then a kneeling position. Another great discovery was Jayna's car. It was parked 3 blocks away in a lot Jayna never used. Blood was on the stick shift, the steering wheel, and the inside buttons of the car. The DNA in the car belonged primarily to Brittany. A black hat was found in the back of the car, and it was stained with blood that also belonged to Brittany. The detectives decided to meet with Brittany again. They asked her to come in and provide some DNA and fingerprint samples so that they could eliminate her. However, the real reason they wanted her to come in was so they could ask her about being in Jayna's car. The police had wired the room to record audio and video, unbeknownst to Brittany. The police asked Brittany if she knew what kind of car Jayna drove, and Brittany said she had no idea. They asked Brittany if she had ever been in Jayna's car, if maybe Jayna had ever given her a ride home, to which Brittany also said no. This meant they had just caught Brittany in a lie, since they had found her blood inside of the car. There was no denying that Brittany had ever been in it. Police asked Brittany to recall the story once more, and she did. She told the story exactly the same, using the same softness and emotion she had the many times before. They asked Brittany if she had sex with anyone lately, because if so, they would also need to gather a sample from any partners to rule them out. Brittany said that she had not had sex in over a week, and that there wouldn't have been any semen inside of her because the attacker only penetrated her briefly, and then continued with the clothes hanger. The police had just caught her in another lie. Brittany's exam had shown that she had had sex within the week, and there were traces of semen left inside of her. Two of Brittany's friends also confirmed that Brittany had gone out with someone 2 days before the attack, and she had told them she had had sex with him. The police sent Brittany home with the intent of finding a way to bring her back. However, Brittany soon came back to police headquarters all on her own. Brittany returned saying that she had something else she wanted to tell them. She came in with her sister Marissa and her brother Chris. Brittany told the detectives that she had in fact been inside Jayna's car, and even driven it, because the attackers had made her do it. Brittany said that prior to being assaulted and zip-tied, she was forced to drive the car to the spot where Jayna's car was found. The men told her that if she opened her mouth to anyone, she would be dead because they would be watching her the entire time. The detectives asked why she didn't just keep going, and Brittany said that she was too scared because the men knew where she lived. Brittany said at one point she even passed a cop, but she was too scared to stop. She told the police that she wore a black hat while moving the car, the same black hat that was found in the back seat. After asking her some more questions, the detectives finally asked Brittany to just tell them what really happened. They put on some pressure and told Brittany they knew the story she was telling was fake. It was almost as if Brittany truly believed the story she was telling, because she would not budge when the detectives asked her to tell them the truth. Finally, the detectives told her that they would send her siblings in after reading Brittany her Miranda rights. Brittany's siblings were shocked at the evidence the police showed them, proving that Brittany killed Jayna. The detectives hoped that Brittany would finally confess to spare her siblings from having to sit through this. Marissa actually had to leave the room because she was so distraught, and Chris stayed. He told police that he had suspicions from the first time he saw Brittany after the attack because things did not add up. The detectives presented Brittany and Chris with the information, as well as telling them that someone saw Brittany in the car for over an hour, where they believed she contemplated if she should flee the scene or go inside the store and stage the crime scene further. This is when Chris asked the detectives if he could speak with Brittany privately. The detectives left the room, and Chris asked Brittany if she did in fact commit this crime, to which she said, "I don't want to talk about it here." Chris told Brittany he wasn't sure that they were going to let her come home, and told her that they needed to get a lawyer. Brittany eventually broke down, saying that she didn't know how it happened. Chris asked if Brittany was caught shoplifting, which Brittany declined. Brittany didn't think the room was bugged, and so she thought she was telling Chris in confidence the story of what happened. She told Chris that Jayna accused her of shoplifting, and that is where it all started. She explained that Jayna had come back into the store to let Brittany in because Brittany really had forgotten her wallet. That is when Jayna told Brittany she was going to let the manager know that Brittany had shoplifted. Chris told Brittany that he was going to bring the police back in, but before he left, he told his sister that she needed to learn how to lie to the police and even gave her some tips. However, the police had already heard everything, and this gave the police the go-ahead to arrest her. The community was in absolute shock. However, in a way, they also felt a sense of relief knowing that there were not two killers walking freely in their community. Jayna's funeral was attended by nearly 200 people, including the CEO of Lululemon. Jayna's family found out on the day of her funeral that Brittany had been arrested for the murder of Jayna. They were shocked and disgusted because they had considered sending Brittany flowers while she was in the hospital, and the only reason they didn't is because Brittany declined. It now made sense why she didn't want their flowers. She had been the one who killed their daughter. Prosecutors decided to go for first-degree murder and wanted to prosecute Brittany to the fullest extent of the law. They wanted the toughest sentence possible for her, life in prison without the possibility of parole. The prosecution felt that Brittany's case was so vile and extreme, there was no chance of rehabilitation for her. However, Brittany's lawyer wanted her to be committed to the local psychiatric unit on the basis of insanity, and also tried to get the prosecution down to a second-degree murder charge. Though it would be hard for the family to go through the trial, they insisted, partially because they wanted to make sure Brittany would never hurt anyone again, but also because they wanted to hear the details of what happened to Jayna so that they could try to move on. There was very heavy media coverage for this case, and news cameras flooded outside of the courthouse every day, trying to get glimpses and statements from those involved. The trial lasted for 6 days. Brittany's lawyer argued that rather than this being a premeditated crime, Brittany had simply lost control during her argument with Jayna. Since Brittany's defense was not arguing that Brittany had committed the crime, It was now the job of the prosecution to prove that the attack was premeditated. The prosecution focused on how Brittany called Jayna to lure her back into the store and how she went to great lengths to falsify the crime scene after the attack. They spoke about how Brittany even caused bodily harm to herself to make her story more believable. Throughout the trial, Brittany was dubbed the Queen of Crocodile Tears. The judge even told her that she was one hell of an actress. During the trial, some information about Brittany had come forward. It turned out that Brittany was being watched by some of her superiors at Lululemon because she was suspected of shoplifting. Brittany had previously worked at another Lululemon store in Georgetown, where Brittany had also been suspected of stealing. Brittany had actually been fired from this location because she had exceeded the amount of money she was allowed to spend during the store's biggest employee discount sale. Brittany was later rehired at the Bethesda store because she appealed her termination, saying that she had her manager's permission before exceeding the spending limit. The Friday that Jayna was murdered was actually the first time Jayna and Brittany had worked a night shift alone together. There was supposed to be an additional staff member working with them, but they were short-handed, resulting in the two of them working alone. The evidence about Brittany shoplifting and stealing from other employees was inadmissible in court because it did not pertain to the crime she was being accused of: murder. Jayna had called Rachel and told her that she caught Brittany red-handed, but this was considered hearsay and therefore was not admissible in this court case. This is really unfortunate because it is likely that being caught in the act of stealing is exactly what led Brittany to murder Jayna that night. Many girls at Lululemon had suspected Brittany of stealing in the past and made reports about it. When Rachel, the manager, looked at what employee was working during all of the different incidents of theft, it was always Brittany. They had devised a plan to catch her with proof. The managers even referred to her as the thief. This is when they began to keep a watchful eye on Brittany. However, none of this was allowed in the court hearing. The prosecution was nervous that Brittany would not be found guilty because they were not able to prove any other motive other than shoplifting. Although some jurors felt that there was not a clear motive, they still felt that the brutality of the attack spoke for itself. Within minutes, the jurors deliberated and all 12 of them found Brittany Norwood guilty of first-degree murder. 3 months later, Brittany was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Jayna's sister-in-law asked the judge to finish what Jayna had started when she exposed Brittany as the thief she was, and put Brittany behind bars, where she deserved to be. Jayna's other sister-in-law stated that Brittany's only real contribution to society was lying and theft and murder. Jayna's boyfriend, who she was about to become engaged to, also testified, where he asked the judge to give Brittany the harshest penalty. Brittany's eldest brother testified and claimed that Brittany was a good person and asked the judge to give her leniency when it came to her sentencing. It shocked everybody when Brittany spoke up, saying that she was sorry for the crime she had been convicted of. She said that there was nothing she could do to alleviate the pain of Jayna's family and that she was deeply sorry. Brittany asked the judge to leave her with some hope, asking the judge to give her a life sentence, but with the possibility of parole. However, the judge said that there was no hope for Brittany and that she had plenty of chances to stop herself. The judge also spoke to the Apple employees, stating that they could have done something to stop it. It should also be known that no one from Apple ever reached out to the Murray family or gave a statement. Justice was served as much as it could be. Jayna's family and friends remember her fondly. Some have gotten tattoos in her memory. Others have been inspired to travel and live their lives to the fullest. Jayna's family has made the decision to celebrate her life by setting up the Jayna Murray Foundation. There will be a link in the description box below if you would like to check it out or make a donation so that Jayna's legacy can live on. Thank you for taking the time to listen to Jayna's story. If you would like to leave a comment below, please be kind and respectful. Also, I'm curious to know what you think the Apple employees should have done. Was it up to them to go and intervene? And if they had, could Jayna possibly be alive today? I have mixed feelings because they weren't the ones who committed the crime, but I definitely feel like they could have done something to stop it. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to keep up to date with more cases that we need to talk about.